I'm going to try to do as little talking as possible today because one of the benefits in watching a 6010 root video is hearing the sound.
So I'm going to set this up so it's a little bit loose. That way when I tack it, it's going to pull itself tight. Easily.
Now, I have seen some procedures for this test where they limit you on the length of your weld tacks to somewhere around 3/8 or 1/2 inch. So you've got to read that WPS when you're taking a test so you don't get in trouble. You also want to feather the tacks. Sometimes they don't even let you use a grinder. Sometimes you have to use a 1/2 round file, but you need to feather those ends of those tacks so that you can tie in good to them, both coming off of them and tying into them. Once you get it tacked up, do a little inspection with the light. Wasn't able to really get very good shots here, but you want to make sure that you penetrated and grind out the areas that you didn't. You might even have to redo a tack before the inspector comes over to look at it. All right, watch Andrew now as he pushes that keyhole right into where he feathered that tack. So going to push it up, still keyholing. Right there, the keyhole closed, and he's going to keep on filling a little bit to avoid like a fisheye, even if he has to feather again. Same thing on this side. Coming up to the tack, make sure to keep that keyhole going and push the keyhole well into the tack. You finally close it up, then keep on filling for a few more strokes. You might notice that arc strike there inside the bevel. If you're going to have an arc strike, it's best to have them in there. You want to keep them all inside there and not outside on the pipe. You could take a file to that and remove it, but since this is 6010, not going to hurt anything. But you want to keep it jammed in there pretty tight. You're almost trying to, in your mind's eye, weld this root pass from the inside out. For this demonstration, we welded both bottom halves first. Usually it doesn't matter. Sometimes there are requirements, though. So again, read that WPS or ask whoever's administering the welding test. Do a little quick inspection. Make sure you got the root pass in there and everything tied in like it needs to be. Tip for when that keyhole just gets out of hand. This comes from a previous video I did a good while back, but I think it's applicable here. Sometimes that keyhole you're too hot. You've estimated your amperage wrong and the keyhole just gets too big. It's good to stop instead of just keep fighting it. Sometimes it's good to stop and then restart just ahead of it. Get everything going good again, and then what happens there is now you have more mass, more heat sink, and then you come back with a grinder or a file, if it's pipe, 1/2 round file, and you feather it just like this, and then long arc it a little bit going in there, heat it up, get it keyholing again, push that keyhole up, and get everything tied in there. It's much easier to fix a little too large a keyhole like this than it is to just keep fighting a keyhole sometimes. That's been my experience anyway. On a welding test like this, sometimes a grinder is allowed, sometimes it's not. Sometimes they just give you a 1/2 round file and that's it. If you're going to use a grinder, you definitely want to be really careful and avoid getting grinding scratches like this outside the bevel. We didn't really have the right grinding wheel here for this video. We're trying to get by with a flap disc and use the rigid part of it just to kind of clean up that root pass, but I noticed this when editing, so I thought I would mention it. I want to talk just for a minute about body positioning. It's not such a huge deal on the 6010 route because you're only welding a quarter of it at a time, so you don't really have to reposition. But now that we're going to get at the 7018, we want to make a pass all the way from bottom to top. All right, take a dry run on it, and I'll see if I can.
Okay. So if I'm going to strike it, I'm going to strike it here. I'm going to come down to it.
So you're kind of propping with the one hand so that you're not jagged when you like your knees when you're squatting. It helps you stand up smoothly.
Yep, and I just kind of slide. I do the Boilermaker slide.
The Boilermaker slide.
Come around.
Aiming for the center line of the pipe, I have found, kind of helps you keep your electrode angle right. In your mind's eye, shoot for the center line of that pipe. I got Andrew here to pretend that the end of the pipe is the joint. So he's going to feed rod in there as he repositions his body and makes the round from bottom to top. You can see he's having to do quite a lot of positioning there. You got to have that in your mind ahead of time, or when the helmet drops, everything changes. Here he's doing one left-handed, which he says he would do if he was taking a welding test, just because he's comfortable doing that. Not everybody is. So it's me, you know. I try to do something like a little bit of angle that way.
Yep.
And here, and I'm going to prop either directly on the pipe here with it. And it's going to seem awkward to start with, but when I light up here, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and twist my wrist to where it's good here, but a little bit awkward here.
Yep.
You know, so and then when I light up here, I am
Coming around and
yeah. And then again, I'm having to shuffle my feet, do the dance thing here, but at least I got, you know, that's me. That's what I have done before. I'm perfectly open to the one-handed thing too. I just I would probably actually use one hand right hand, but just do the same positioning, try to light up. And again, I'm not very far under it here. Just, you know, you're a little bit uncomfortable when you start, so that after you get going a little bit, you get comfortable, and then you're just a little uncomfortable when you tie into the top, so to speak. But all right, we're getting ready to light up with the 7018 rod here, and this is where I failed my first test. This is actually the first test that I ever took, real test anyway, and I failed it by blowing through after the root pass. So I had mine set on about 90 amps, and that was too much for a light root pass. You don't want to do that. So we're running 80 to 85 amps here, just a little bit of cushion. So I got a fairly heavy root pass in there too, and that makes a difference. So we're not really at risk here for blowing through that, but I saw that puddle quiver and it went through and I was down the road. Once again, if you look at the little technique Andrew is using, backing into the puddle just a little bit and pausing at the top helps prevent undercut. So it's sort of a little series of cursive E's. I'll show a diagram in just a little while, just in case you aren't recognizing that. But you can watch Andrew reposition his body, aim for the top of that, or aim for the center of the pipe as he's coming up. Let's look at that in fast motion here. It's easier to see. Starting at the bottom, you can see right away he's having to reposition. That's the gig when you're doing 6G tests, especially in 2-inch and smaller. You can see he's aiming for the center of the pipe. That means changing his hand and wrist positioning. There you saw he struck the arc about 3/4 of an inch in front of the bottom of the previous side weld, and then just pretty quickly went right into it. Trying to keep all arc strikes confined within the weld area so that they're welded back over. And right here you watch Andrew's leg kind of slide as he was talking about before. He's propping with that left hand and gradually moving his body around so that he maintains a good line of sight on the puddle. Andrew's young, so he's got his face all up in it. I couldn't even see the puddle if I was that close to it these days. All right, that's the finished single bead version, and didn't have time to film the arcs on the dual bead, but sometimes it takes more than one bead, And same techniques work. All right, here's just a few key points to remember, because this little 332 6010 can be cantankerous. So your gap and your land affect how much amperage, and just a couple of amps can make a difference. So if you're using a slightly tighter gap, you're generally going to want more amps. Usually slightly larger land, you're going to want more amps, and vice versa. And you want to pay attention to how the route's going in while you're tack welding the thing, and make some fine adjustments there before you start on the actual test. All right, here's the little diagram showing a little series of cursive E's that Andrew did on this. Backing up a little bit at the top side, backing into the puddle can really help you avoid undercut. I really hope this video helps somebody pass this welding test, or at the very least helps give them a little bit more confidence and shake the nerves off. Nerves can get the best of you when you're far away from home and you got people back at home depending on you to bring home a paycheck. So thanks for watching. Please visit my store at weldmonger.com, and we'll see you next time.